Sorry, I don't love you. Afraid I've grown accustomed to. Cause with you something isn't wrong, something isn't wrong, something isn't right. I wish you could be happy.
Hey everyone, welcome to Geekdom is back, as is Mike Kamate. We're getting back on the Marvel grind here a little bit. We are kicking things off again with Iron Man 2. I have several of the movies that I do still want to get to, so we'll be doing this and The Incredible Hulk, because I apparently am very interested in rewatching bad movies. But Mike, how are you doing today? Are you ready to talk about Iron Man 2?
I'm always glad to be back here, and it's actually kind of fun to be talking about a movie that I don't like for once. I think the past three you've given me have been probably my three favorites, I think, right? Or like just three of the good ones, I guess I would say. And then there's like at some point you have to start doing the bad ones, and it's nice to be able to kind of just vent, I guess.
Thankfully, though, Marvel doesn't have too many bad ones.
Yeah, like the pits are not pits, not like deep pits. They're just like, they're potholes, and so they suck. But
yeah,
they're not like you're not falling into a terrible, terrible, awful ditch.
Right. I'm just very determined to get through all of the movies before even more start coming out. So
yeah, you have how many months until Avengers 4?
A few, I think.
A few? Yeah, I think it's like April. It's like April or May, right? I forget. So we got
yeah,
4.
so like four or five.
Okay, I mean that should be adequate, right?
Yeah.
Is that trailer supposed to come out today, right? On the day we're recording?
I think so. I have not seen it pop up yet, though.
I have YouTube open in the background and I'm refreshing every 5 seconds. I'm not refreshing. I'm just gonna wait. But I am looking forward to the trailer, as most of America is.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do that without giving too much away. I mean, we know people are coming back. That's not going to be that shocking.
I mean, Tom Holland did that Jimmy Kimmel thing when he was in Brooklyn, and he just showed up on the show in the Spider-Man outfit, and the end of the interview, or like the segment, was just Jimmy Kimmel being like, hey, wait a second, at the end of Infinity War, didn't you like disappear or something like that? Which just spoiled the movie for anybody who hadn't seen it yet, which is really weird to do on national television. But yeah, then Tom Holland was like, he's like, oh, gotta go. And he just like did a backflip and left the stage. Like, that was so stupid. The outfit looks cool for the new Spider-Man.
Yeah.
For, Far From Home. It looks like it's a more like I don't know what like a deeper blue, kind of more like colored in the same way that Tobey Maguire's outfit was in the Sam Raimi ones, but with like the Stark look.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see if he gets yet another suit at the end of that movie, like we've sort of seen in previous movies where they tease the next suit and you're like, oh, okay. We'll have to see that eventually.
I feel like they might do like the black costume maybe for the next one, but I'm interested to see like if the MCU will venture into Venom territory, because the Venom movie, I think since the last time we talked, Venom came out.
Yeah, and it did super well despite critics not liking it much.
Yeah, it was like I was so surprised to see what like a heaping pile of crap everything looked like. But then the fans, I follow this stupid subreddit called the Venom site. Are you on that one at all?
I am not.
It's fine. It's not important.
Yeah, Reddit comes and goes with me. It's like I'll check it frequently for like a week, and then I kind of just fall off and don't check Reddit for a very long time.
Yeah, it was like in 2012, I was just drawing a lot of like Spider-Man and Venom, and I wanted to just, see if there was any good art, like, or fan art being posted, just to see, like, draw inspiration or whatever. And I followed this thing called the Venom site. And when Venom, the movie, got announced, everyone was like flipping out, and people are just like gushing in that post, calling it like the best Marvel movie ever made, or like hearkening back to like Daredevil, which was bad. The Ben Affleck Daredevil was not good.
Yeah. The general public is weird.
Yeah, but they love it, and it did really well overseas. So like, obviously they're gonna make another one because it made money.
Yeah,
and this like the content just doesn't matter at all.
It's still in some theaters too, so it's still raking in the money. It's getting close to $1 billion, pretty much.
That's insane. Yeah, it was like 600 million last time I looked at it.
It's now above 800.
God.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just like, what is happening? I think overseas alone, it's over 600.
Why is that? Like,
I don't know.
I know China has a lot to do with like movie and like international, but like I don't know anything about Venom. I haven't seen it. It didn't look interesting. I was like, definitely wait for VOD on that one. So like I just don't know what appeal it could have to an international audience. It's shot in like San Francisco, right? Or most of it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
It's like they take part of the Lethal Protector storyline, but then ignore the entire Spider-Man part of the storyline.
Right. Okay. So I want to ask a question about it. I know we're veering so far, of course, now
It's okay.
from our main topic, but I just feel like I need to get this out of the way. So part of Venom is like the look of Venom is drawing from like the symbiote's love for Spider-Man, like the longing for Spider-Man and what he was and what he looked like. And so he kind of transfers that into Eddie Brock.
Right.
So do they address that at all? Why Venom looks the way it looks in the movie? You have to tell me how they address it, but do they or do they not address it?
I don't think they ever did, because
That's craziness.
I was actually a little put off by the fact that they didn't even want the spider logo on Venom.
Yeah.
And it just looks so weird at first when I was seeing, when the images were popping up and everything. And I was like, but where's the logo? Like,
Yeah.
these heroes sort of have all of these iconic logos for a reason, and to not use it just seemed so weird. And I mean, Tom Hardy was by far my favorite part of the movie, just because he just went so deep into it that you couldn't help but kind of enjoy his performance.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, there were a lot of weird things about it. I was like, but none of this makes sense as an origin story.
Yeah, it's a really weird concept to make a Venom movie without a Spider-Man. And this has probably been said on a dozen film and comic podcasts. So I know I'm not saying anything novel here, but wild. Just that they would just totally ignore that concept. Like the movie has to exist in it. Like the universe this movie exists in has to be one without Spider-Man. It just like it's the only explanation I can think of. Like there's no way to draw Spider-Man into this. So this is just going to be a Venom universe, like a Venomverse, if you will. Or like I heard actually Into the Spider-Verse, like he might like that Venom maybe making an appearance in Spider-Verse. I don't know. Who knows? I am very much looking forward to that one though.
Yeah, I don't know. I do know they're going to build out the animated universe as well. They've already announced some new movies, but the one that really confuses me is Kraven the Hunter without Spider-Man, because I just don't care about that character without Spider-Man, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I think the not the death of comic films, but like just the like when you're reaching to make movies about like, villains that like, appear every, year or two in the comic runs, like that's reaching for a comic film. It's just, move on, I think. I mean, Black Cat, that was kind of cool. Silver Sable though, that's not, I don't think that's a movie there. I don't think you have enough. Like I would rather see the Black Widow be fully like 100% full speed ahead,
right,
than anything like that.
With Black Cat, the only thing I can think of is that it would make a really fun heist movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's fine with me. That's kind of what Solo was to me.
Right. I was just going to bring that up. Like heist, like seeing like genre flicks within another genre is really cool to me. Like the heist flick within the Star Wars universe was awesome, and a heist flick within the cinematic universe would be great too. Oh man, it's like building a team. Like it has the potential to go into kind of like Suicide Squad territory though, with like building a team of villains or whatever, of anti-heroes. Right. So I don't know if that's great, but whatever. It would still be nice. Like heist flicks at least give you that, like if they're done right, they give you that suspense and that cleverness and whatever that you would see in like an Ocean's 11 flick.
And then Disney has their streaming service coming, so who knows what we're going to see with that too, with a bunch of these characters. I mean, I don't think they're going to really put Spider-Man on that service just because they probably can't, but it's complicated right now with Marvel, to say the least.
They canceled Daredevil, right?
Yeah, they've canceled Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Daredevil, even though Daredevil had a 4th season planned.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if Jessica Jones gets a 3rd season. I really do want a 2nd season of The Punisher, just because I feel like if Iron Fist gets a 2nd season, The Punisher definitely should.
Right. I mean, not having watched any of these shows, I still know that they're like cultural phenomenons, and I feel that maybe Disney is just kind of like pulling the reins back in on these. Maybe it wasn't like exclusively Netflix not ordering it or something. Maybe it was just Disney's refusal to cooperate with Netflix or something, because they know they need launch titles for their thing, and they need to get people jumping from Netflix to theirs. Like it's weird because I think Infinity War premieres today or tomorrow on Netflix.
I think it's actually coming Christmas Day.
Christmas Day. Okay. Yeah, you're right. I think
Iron Man 2 is coming Christmas Day on like Amazon Prime too, but I was like, I'm not waiting that long.
Right.
Nor
Yeah,
do I really want to watch that movie on Christmas Day.
No, yeah, that's the greatest present. Iron Man 3 would make more sense because that was a Christmas themed Iron Man.
True.
Yeah, that was just like all, whatever his name is, Shane Black. What was it? Is that the director?
Yes.
He did like Predator and everything. Yeah, he loves Christmas. It's so strange. Man, Iron Man 3 I would love to talk about also.
I think it's available.
Yeah, I mean, sign me up for that because there's so much like just Shane Black stuff we could talk about. And like, because I watched Iron Man 3 and then the next night I watched, what's it called? Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which are essentially the same film.
Just one has Iron Man. I have not watched that yet, but I can watch it if you want to make it a discussion point.
100%. I would love to. You should watch both those films and then we can do both of those films and then review both of them.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm all in on that idea.
Deal. Okay, so let's do Iron Man 2. Sorry.
Yes.
I dragged this down a 10-minute side on that one.
It's okay. I welcome tangents. But Iron Man 2 is interesting because it doesn't really accomplish much, I guess. It's one of those things where we already know that Robert Downey Jr. is the perfect guy to play Tony Stark because Iron Man was such a big hit when it came out, and I think it's one of those movies that fans really still enjoy revisiting. And you then have the addition of Black Widow in this and Ivan Vanko, who is played by Mickey Rourke, which just the look of that character, I was like, this is not good. This is going to be ridiculous.
I was gonna say, like, let's do like the things that we got right and got wrong. And one of the things that I think the movie got right was Vanko. Not in the sense, like, not in any like truth to the comic or whatever or anything. I thought that like the best part of this film was Mickey Rourke.
Really?
Maybe, and like I don't know about the costume design. I think like obviously like the dreadlocks or whatever, his hair was kind of ridiculous, and like Mickey Rourke might have it somewhere in his contract that he needs to be shirtless or like chest exposed for most of his roles. I don't know, like between this and The Wrestler and his other things that were coming out around this time, just like loves showing off that chest, which is fine.
For me, it was the look that was the ridiculous part. I do understand the purpose of the character, which is probably one of the better used characters in this movie because
just acting alone to me was fantastic. Like I thought that, like, I mean, he has so few lines, right? He's speaking broken English for most of it, but like his character is written, pretty one-dimensionally. He's just a guy who's like, his dad's dead. His dad dies in the opening scene, and he, needs to avenge his dad's life's work that was taken from him by Stark, and so he obviously has it out for Tony Stark, and it's just he just has this like believability. Like I believed him as like a Russian outcast that was just there, and like everything else was just kind of pale in comparison acting wise. Like Sam Rockwell was like loud as shit and just super like
annoying.
he was in like 10, he was like pushing to 11 on that one. Tony Stark was just kind of like Downey was just phoning it in, Pepper Potts phoning it in. But like, I felt like Mickey Rourke had a stake in it, in this, or he just had something to prove. Like this was his comeback year. I feel like, between, when did The Wrestler come out? Was that like 2010, 2011? I remember that was huge when it came out. And then this also was shortly after. Yeah, Wrestler was 2008 and Iron Man 2 was
2010, I think.
Yeah, so like within a couple of years, like Mickey Rourke was seeing a little bit more work than he had in the past, but yeah, he just like he definitely had the chops, I think.
Yeah, one of the things that I thought was just a little too over dramatic for me was his big entrance on the raceway, because he did look absolutely ridiculous, and the CGI didn't seem all that great. You had like the flames and he was like walking out of the flames. I was like, this hurts to look at.
Hell.
Yeah.
Corny as hell. Yeah. It was just like, he was just, I mean, the bad parts about Whiplash or Vanko in this movie was, I feel like just the problems with the movie altogether is just that he was just relegated to one corner while this other plot was over here happening and this third plot was here. There was like 4 or 5 plots going on in this film at once, which is fine in most, like, I mean, like Infinity War, you have like, it's similar to Star Wars. You have these characters going off on their own side missions. Lord of the Rings, there are 3 main stories being told, but in this, it's all surrounding this one character. Like, there's no development of the villains. There's no development of Rockwell. There's no development of Vanko even. There's just kind of like, I mean, he goes from being, you know, on a one-man crusade against Tony to being backed by Rockwell. But it's boring. It's very boring. And it's not like, you know, Infinity War where you have very important plot points occurring at separate locations.
Right.
It's just, I mean, like I said, again, it's just boring.
It was pretty obvious, too, that Vanko didn't care what Hammer wanted. And
yeah,
you could tell the entire time that he was just going to kind of phone in what Hammer wanted and then turn on him. And the thing with Hammer's storyline in this is that he's just this jealous rich guy. So he is so jealous of Tony Stark that he's going to have this stupid idea to get this criminal out of prison and think he's actually going to do the work for him instead of just getting back at Tony Stark the way he wants to.
Yeah, he was just so stupid. Like Rockwell was just, again, another talk about characters phoning it in. Like, this dude just walks onto set and just is like, okay, I'm going to be a cartoon character for the next. And yes, it is a comic book, so I get it. But it's just,
right,
it was just like, it was the bad type of cartoon character. Like Downey, at least, you know, has this this charisma, and Rockwell tried to project that, but he just wanted to do it in the way that he was doing it completely wrong. He was like trying to be Tony Stark, like the confidence, but without any of the intelligence or just anything that Tony had. It was weird. It was just, I don't know, his like spray tan on his hands was really gross. Like, just Google image search that, just like Sam Rockwell Iron Man spray tan, and his hands are just like Donald Trump status. It's weird. It's gross.
Yeah.
I just don't believe that a villain that dumb could get so far, you know? It was just weird to me that he was so non-threatening for the whole film.
Right.
And he ends up being like the villain. It's kind of like Iron Man 3 level where the villain ends up being not real or whatever. It's just, this was kind of like they just took the villain that was real and then took the not real villain and made him the dominating force again. It was bizarre. There was no way to look at it.
Yeah. What did you think of the inclusion of Scarlett Johansson in this one? Because it kind of felt like a waste of her talents, and especially as Black Widow. It's like we have that moment where she quickly takes Happy down, and you know, Tony and Pepper kind of freak out for a brief moment there, and then you have the scene later where she goes to Hammer Industries and takes a bunch of people out. But I feel like the moments in between those two things happening, it was just like, really, she's going to be his assistant? Oh, first she's a notary though. Can't forget about that.
Right. I mean, truthfully, this is the third, or I think, yeah, it must be the third time I've seen this movie. Once in theaters, second time when it like just on, you know, streaming service, like not a streaming service, but like just my friend ripped it or something like that, and we were watching it at home. And this is the third time I saw it. So, and all of those were separated by like, this is 2010, so, you know, like over the course of 8 years, 3 times. And I did not remember Scarlett Johansson was in this movie at all.
Yeah, I honestly didn't either. I was like, this is where they put her in?
I had watched Winter Soldier recently in preparation for, I think, our Civil War talk. And when I saw her in that, I assumed that was her first appearance. But she was also, I think, I thought Avengers was her first, because Winter Soldier was post-Avengers. So I had just assumed Avengers, her first role was in Avengers. But like, yeah, when she showed up in this, I was like, this is weird.
Yeah,
she was more of a like in Winter Soldier, she was like a character. She had personality. Right. She had full interactions with what's his name, Captain America.
What's his name?
What's the name of the movie again? The character that is the name of the movie. What's his name? But yeah, like she was like a driving force in that film. And this, she was just extra. And they needed a way to introduce her. I'm not opposed to how they used her in this film. Now that I do remember that she was in it, or now that I was like reminded that. But yeah, she definitely, like, they wanted to pull the switcheroo, you know, just like make her a pretty
Right.
face and then show you like, oh, she's really this one. Because I don't think in theaters I don't. I wouldn't have put it together. Like, her name was like Natalie Thompson or whatever or something like that. Something.
I think it was
definitely-
Rushman.
Yeah,
So
Rushman.
It was like the same
NR.
initials, but
Yeah.
it wasn't like super obvious.
Natalia Romanikov or something, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
But yeah, she. So I never would have. It never would have dawned on me. Like, I mean, obviously the boxing match where she bests Happy is, you know, they're just like, oh, well, she's more than meets the eye. She's just like a tough secretary. But that could just be easily spun into like, ooh, Tony likes her because she's got spunk, and like, I bet this will
Right.
come in handy later. But not that she's going to be the Black Widow, which I don't think I had like, as a comics reader, I don't think I was too invested in like Avengers world at that point. So Black Widow didn't mean too much to me. But yeah, so I don't know. I like all the characters and aspects of this film. I think there are good and bad parts of each of them. And I do think she kicked ass at the end of the film. Like that fight scene
Right.
at the end where Happy's like thinking, he's like, oh, I got one. And like Natalia took care of everyone in the
Yeah.
room. Like all of the bad like henchmen, she got them. It was nice to see her gadgets and her fighting. Like, they definitely granted her some autonomy. Like, it sucks that she had to be like that donut shop scene or like a diner scene with Nick Fury, that she had to be like,
Yeah.
oh, by the way, she like just walks into the frame and sits down next to him in like hot outfit with like crazy new hair and like, you know, just like the leather, like the spandex or leather or whatever, the pleather that she was wearing.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, it's a little extra. It's a little much here, you know. It's like, gotcha.
I think what probably bothered me more with that was the fact that she then became Pepper's assistant, and I was like,
Oh yeah.
what purpose does that serve if she's supposed to be like keeping an eye on Tony?
Like, yeah, this movie was, I think it was just all about getting things into place for Avengers. Because I
Yeah.
think they realized like the end of Iron Man was, okay, Nick Fury, here he is, awesome, cool. So something's coming, something bigger is coming. And then Hulk came after Iron Man, right? Or I forget, Incredible Hulk?
They came the same year, and I never
Same year.
remember which was first, but they were definitely both in 2008.
Tony Stark makes an appearance in Incredible Hulk, right? And just kind of like tries to tempt him with something. I forget what. It's because that's one movie I haven't rewatched.
Yeah,
Since the first
I'll
time
be
I
doing
saw
that
it.
soon, so we'll see how it
God
goes.
bless. God bless on you. Just be strong. But yeah, it is so. They were definitely moving towards something, but this one they're like, oh shoot, Avengers is coming like next year or whatever, and we definitely need to put Tony in a spot. So let's introduce Black Widow because we need her to be a main character in Avengers. We need Nick Fury to be more of a presence. We need Tony's like reluctance to be an Avenger, a thing, which was brought in through the end of the movie. We just got to put him in a spot where he's like at prime health. They just needed something like injector, like it was like fuel injector, I think, for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like they just like, okay, we need something to bridge the gap, but we don't know what. So let's just do a whole bunch of crap, put it together, put some really like paper thin plots and paper thin conflicts on this thing, and we'll have some lasers and flying things. It'll be fine. You know, that's the movie.
Yeah. My last note on casting, though, is the recasting of Rhodey, because all of a sudden it's Don Cheadle, and you're like, oh, okay, all right, cool. And then he becomes War Machine, and you're like, all right, that's a thing. He's a silver Iron Man.
Right. Well, there was the next time baby thing that Terrence Howard said at the end of Iron Man 1.
Right.
When he looks over at the suit and he's like, that was such a great moment in the theaters. I mean, I can't, like, I could go, like many of the movies I love, I could go on for Iron Man 1 forever and about how awesome it was and just how great it was to see it in theaters and all the things they got right. Do you know the story about Terrence Howard not coming back? Or is it just a salary thing? He was fine. I liked him more. He was definitely, I mean, he's not Don Cheadle in the sense, I mean, they are very different looking people. So like replacing one with the other was just, you know, obviously weird. Did they do in Iron Man 2? Did they do like you look different, or like, did you lose some weight or something like that? Did they do one of those kind of things? I forget.
No, I don't think they did, because, well, they had like a brief moment, because it was when he showed up at the Senate hearing. And
Or like, oh, I almost didn't recognize you or something like that, or something.
it was like something like, how have you been, or something. It was just like some quick thing, like, good to see you again, or something like that. And it didn't really specifically mention it, but it was one of those things where he walks in and you're like, oh, that's not who I was expecting it to be. Obviously now I was expecting it to be him, but
like they have to say his name 3 or 4 times in the beginning, like just in the first introduction of this character, they like multiple times be like, this is Rhodey, this is James Rhodes, oh, Rhodey, famous hero. It's like they had to make it very clear. Like I thought Terrence Howard was fine. But it had to be a salary dispute. Like, it must have been like Downey was making way more than everybody else in Iron Man 2, and Terrence Howard's like, well, that's not fair. And Don
Right.
Cheadle was like, I'll do it,
yeah.
whatever, I'll get in on this. Like, I feel like Don Cheadle took advantage of a great situation. He knew that the MCU was going to be huge. He knew that it would be cool, like, and a fun movie to make, obviously, because it looked like fun, to be in that suit to get to do those things. And it's Marvel money, it's Disney money eventually.
Right.
I don't think, like, Disney probably hadn't bought him yet, right? But it was going to be soon if it hadn't happened already. So he just basically, like, it's kind of how I was. Okay, Mike tangent right now, where it has almost nothing to do with anything. But I was listening to this podcast episode from 20,000 Hertz about dubbing in films, and how for movies like Star Wars, they approach dubbing artists and actors and actresses, and they're like, oh, will you do this Star Wars movie? Which is a huge thing. And like, Harrison Ford makes a lot from that movie. All the main characters make a huge amount of money from Force Awakens when it comes back, and big salaries all around. But the dubbing actors are pitched like tiny salaries, like
Right.
just nothing, like what they would make on any other film. Like, but why shouldn't our salary scale for a film that's going to make $1 billion or whatever? And they're like, no, because literally we could ask anyone to do a Star Wars movie and they would do it just to be a part of it. So that's kind of how I see like what happened with Terrence Howard. I haven't read like the Hollywood Reporter and found the true story yet behind everything. I don't think it's like a Ed Norton thing where he wanted creative control of the Hulk and Avengers and everything and the MCU, or like producer credit.
Right.
I think Terrence Howard just wanted to be paid fairly, and Marvel was just like, well, I don't care. Just, we'll take anybody else who will do this.
Yeah, I do love some of the Rhodey moments in this movie, though, because he has that moment where he's at the party and he just goes and gets one of the suits to get Tony to basically calm down before he hurts a bunch of people, because he is drunk wearing the Iron Man suit.
Yes.
And he just straight up flies away with it and does not have any intention of returning it.
Like that scene too, it stuck out to me as a really good good dialogue in a bad setting. Like that scene was just so over the top. Like,
and Tony totally deserved it too.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, he deserved what he got for sure, but I'm just speaking in terms of like the filmmaking behind the scene, or just like the writing. Yeah. They're like, okay, so at a party, Tony's going to get drunk and he's going to wear the Iron Man suit and be weird, which I'm sure he's done in the comics. And we'll dabble a little bit in his alcoholism, but we're not going to go full Monty on this thing. We'll have him like start scratching the turntable and making stupid toasts and blowing stuff up, and like having DJ AM, rest in peace, in the background, just doing his thing. And it was just like so like, and then just like superhero fight in the middle of a party, clear out the guests, everybody go, it's like very much like a saloon in like a Wild West movie or something like that kind of scene, where it's like just a stupid goofy thing happening, and then all of a sudden it gets serious all of a sudden, and then the fight happens. Like, you want to be the War Machine? Like, it's a very interesting conflict and conversation they're having. He's like, Tony just sobers up immediately, which is weird, and he's just like, yeah, like, oh, but actually now here's some integrity behind my drunken stupor. You want to take my suit and like make it a weapon? Go ahead, like do your thing. And Rhodey's like, okay. He just knocks him out and he goes. Like, it was a good scene. I feel like it could have been written so much better in a different context. There's a lot going on here. Another Rhodey scene, though, to stay on Rhodey, that happens subsequent to that scene that you're describing, is that I thought was really awkward to watch in the film, is when Rhodey takes it to, I think, General Ross or somebody, or he takes it to the military, basically.
Right.
when he lands in that airfield and just walks in, it's like a very long, drawn out aside that doesn't have anything to. I mean, obviously, we need to know that Rhodey is now in, like, War Machine is in the possession of the U.S. Army, but it was weird to me the way they shot that. And he just like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I didn't need to know he did this. Like, you could have just had him show up at the convention, at the expo, and just say it's a thing, you know, like the Army is doing it. That would have very clearly told us. It would have been sufficient. But instead, they stick in this like 3 or 4 minute scene of just him flying to an airbase, doing a long dramatic walk down the runway, being surrounded by a bunch of soldiers and walking up to some high authority figure and being like, General, I'm here. And then it was like a fade out or something like that. It was like really weird and it was super out of place to me.
Yeah, they even could have cut that down and just had him land at the Air Force Base without making, sort of like this slow motion entrance.
Even so, yeah, like, I mean, that would have been better, but just get rid of it altogether. Like, it was just like it was a weird location to stick in the movie for 3 minutes and then never come back to again. And clearly, like, I don't need to see he clearly ends up in somebody's possession and gets turned into War Machine. So that's all we needed. He's not at the party, but he's at the expo.
It was drawn out when they go through all of the weapons too with Hammer. They have the suit laying there and Hammer is just showing Rhodey and the other guy the weapons, and Rhodey's not saying anything. He's just sort of standing there looking at all of the weapons and then says he'll take all of them. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
did we need that?
There was so much filler.
Yeah, there were a lot of things about that I think they could have cut and spent more time elsewhere, because one of the things I didn't think they explored enough was when Tony was given his dad's blueprint and everything for his next project by Fury. And there's so much emotionally that they could have done there. And they touched on it a little, I felt, but otherwise it was just Tony getting to work and not really having any feelings about it, which isn't surprising for Tony. But at the same time, I think they could have dug a little deeper into his relationship with his dad and how that didn't sort of go as he thought it would when he was a kid.
Yeah. John Slattery as what's his name, Howard Stark. That was, yeah, it was nice to see him, but it was just that whole montage scene. It's just like another plot. Like, can we list all the plots of this movie? You have the Vanko plot, you have the Tony getting sick Stark, you have the Tony's affection for his father, or like rejected affection for his father, you have the Sam Rockwell plot, you have the drones that are being created, you have the Pepper Potts romance, you have the War Machine getting away. I'm on 7 right now. 7 plots.
And then you have S.H.I.E.L.D.
S.H.I.E.L.D., yes, the development of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Scarlett Johansson's character. That's, I mean, I'll count those as 2. Even if I count it at 1, then that's 8.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it goes on. And, like, it's not uncommon, like Love Actually, for a film to have, like, multiple, plots going on. But, like...
And you have Pepper becoming CEO. And not wanting to be CEO.
There's 10 plot lines in this film that,
there's so many
progress throughout the course of this like hour and 30 minutes or whatever it is. It's just too much. And like part of the beauty of Iron Man 1 was that it was just this linear path of Tony Stark taking him from to asshole to hero. Or just like, maybe not asshole, but just like, not caring American entrepreneur, warmonger, weapons manufacturer to hero at the end of it. And that was just a great linear progression. It stuck with him the whole thing. And this one is just, there's so much going on and it just could have been simplified. Like things I would have liked to see more of. Oh, Tony's alcoholism. That's 11,
Yes.
But like they didn't even touch on it. Did you watch the alternate intro for this movie?
I did not.
Scene? Oh, I recommend you and any listeners who have not seen this to check this out. But it's on YouTube. If you just YouTube alternate opening for Iron Man 2, it's like a 2-minute video, and it's got the Marvel logo. I think it was Paramount did this one. I forget. But yeah, you have the Paramount logo, the Iron Man logo, Marvel Comics logo, coming up on this one, and over that you hear Tony Stark, maybe similar to what you saw in Iron Man 1, where he's just kind of like being held hostage or whatever, but you hear him being like, I'm gonna die, I'm not gonna make it, and it's like whispering. It sounds like he's in like a chamber, like a very close quarters, being close mic'd, like breathing heavily, and he's just like, I'm not gonna do this, like I can't, I'm gonna die. And like you're like, oh man, your interest is piqued, and it opens, and then it like hard cut to just him at a toilet on an airplane, like this kneeling over it, and like as if he's just been vomiting there. He's got like the half not the CG suit, but like the practical suit on, so like his hands aren't CG'd yet. His like the rest of his thing, he's wearing like the little balls and everything.
Right.
And he's just talking, has this really bad dialogue with Pepper. It's just shit dialogue, with her, and just talking about like how he's really drunk. She's like, you look hungover. You look like you do every day. You look hungover. And just basically him just trying to abandon the mission, so to speak, which ends up just being him jumping out of the plane to the Stark Expo, which is what we do end up seeing in the film after the Vanco opening. But yeah, just him being a drunken mess and saying, I can't do this. I'm going to die. I feel terrible. You can't give me Motrin for a hangover or whatever. Because I'm not on my period or something, like genuinely sexist and probably out of date for 2010, probably super off color for 2010. And,
right.
yeah. And he just jumps out of the airplane. She's like, oh, but you have to do it. He's like, oh, okay. And then they do the dialogue from the movie and he jumps out the airplane. And it was just so again, the dialogue was terrible, but it would have been nicer to have that aspect of his alcoholism in the movie. It's like, I get that it's a movie for kids and you have to tread lightly on substance abuse in a PG-13 movie, and you only get one F-bomb for the whole thing if it's a PG-13. Like, there's a lot of rules. I get it, but it still would have been a way more interesting film if they had just delved deeper into this dark side of Tony. And instead of just that one party scene where they kind of make it seem like he's partying because he thinks he's going to die soon because of this disease. Like, they replaced his alcoholism with his, whatever, the toxicity that his arc reactor is giving him or whatever.
I think it's dumb that they also kept Pepper in the dark for so long about the fact that Tony was dying, because she is the person who sees him the most, probably, and she knows him better than he knows himself sometimes, and we see that in the first movie, but then it's like that goes out the window in this one, and she just has no clue that he's dying, but she has this feeling that he's not telling her something, and she just doesn't prod him all that much further to figure out what it is.
I wonder if that's because of like rewrites or reshoots with the alcoholism thing, because like,
yeah,
if you look at the opening, she's very clear that he's hungover and he drinks a lot. The alternate opening, rather, that he drinks a lot and he's an alcoholic or whatever. And if they did replace this toxicity thing, which it does seem like too big of a plot point for it to be like a rewrite or something like that, or to be like injected later on. But I'm wondering if I mean, you're totally right. It does her a disservice as a character, because it makes her into this dummy who can't see the obvious. Like you said, she knows exactly who Tony is. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense that Tony would be prideful and try and hide it from her, but it would have been better if they had pulled like I'm trying to think of an example of it, but I can't. If she had just known the whole time. Yeah.
It was just weird because Fury noticed it within like 2 seconds of sitting down with him, and it's like, come on.
Yeah, and I think it would have been way better to have Pepper Potts not be like a dumb blonde or whatever or something. And I don't think she is. I think that later on they paint her as a very competent CEO and personally manages, especially in Avengers, when she has the better of Tony in knowing who Coulson is and about the cellist and all that good stuff. And yeah, and in Iron Man 3, they treat her a lot better in Iron Man 3, I believe. But yeah, it seems that like she would definitely, you're right, she would know what was going on for sure.
Yeah, and because there are so many plot lines in this, it feels like some of them just don't get resolved really, and this whole movie was leading up to the Avengers Initiative without telling us what it even was. It was just like, you see the file at the end and they're like, oh, you can't read that yet, or I don't want you reading that yet, is what Fury says to him in some strand of words there.
He says he doesn't want him on the team, right?
Yeah.
He's like, we'll use you as a consultant.
Yeah, that was based on Black Widow's report, because it was like, Iron Man, yes, Tony Stark, no.
But then Coulson comes to Stark Tower in Avengers and is like, so about this Avengers Initiative.
Right.
Can we do this thing? Like, how about that? Like, it's a weird sort of retcon, I guess, in that respect. But yeah, it's it was cool. Like I guess they needed to keep Tony, like keep the doors open for how they were going to write Avengers and how they were going to bring the heroes together. Because if you just have this entity called the Avengers at the beginning of the Avengers, it kind of defeats the point of, like, it removes the conflict from creating the Avengers, essentially. You know, if Tony's parading around as like a world team, like a world savior team, then it doesn't really make a lot of sense to have him as, like, there need to be some tension going into Avengers.
They do a lot of setup for it too, obviously, by including Scarlett Johansson, and then you have them bringing in the idea of the Avengers, and the post-credit scene then gives us Thor's hammer. So it's like they're throwing these things at you, but they're trying to do it subtly, but it doesn't really come off that way. It's just like, okay, here's some things, and we'll tell you more later.
Yeah, definitely. Like I think it would have been cool because I didn't watch Thor for a long time I didn't see Thor until after Avengers, so I had no idea what was going on. Like, and so it was cool for me to see in Iron Man 2 to see the hammer at the end of it. Like, it was like cool, like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen, but then I just didn't, it wasn't interesting enough for me to actually go see Thor when it came out.
Right. Probably don't blame me for that.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like Avengers movies, or like Marvel, you can say what you want about it. As corny as it is in general, like Thor was, to me, way cornier. And it took until Ragnarok for them to figure that out. For more on Ragnarok, listen to our previous episode.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like I said earlier, for the most part, they nailed down these characters pretty well and what they wanted to do with them. I think, Captain America was probably the most successful of the solo movies and most consistent, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. After rewatching Winter Soldier again, like, just like Captain 1, solid. Captain 2, also solid. Cap 3, obviously one of my favorites. But yeah, I just think this was just, they knew it was like their cash cow essentially for Iron Man 2. Like, Iron Man was their heavy hitter, and it was just on the books. Like, 2 years later, we need another Iron Man movie to hold us over.
And the thing is, they were sort of starting with their, B and C list characters in the comics, because they didn't have Spider-Man, they didn't have Fantastic Four, they didn't have X-Men. So they sort of had to dig a little deeper and be like, okay, what characters can we pluck out and use? And even though Iron Man had been around for a long time, same with the Hulk, they were two of the very early characters, even Thor and Captain America too. But it was just like, you kind of have this ragtag team of heroes that you're trying to put together, and they all have such different skills and personality traits that, you obviously see that in Avengers too, where they come together and, no one really knows who to look to for anything. And Tony obviously assumes it's him, but then, Cap is kind of the more obvious choice. And it's just interesting to see how they progressed from introducing these characters individually and then getting to Avengers and having something like this sort of be filler and setup at the same time.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I can't look to it for like anything more than like a few good laughs, a couple action scenes. I mean, I think the action scenes are like one of the few times that this movie delivers. Yeah. But I think it's also, some of them are like the Monaco scene is pretty wasted, I think. Like, it's over in like, 5 minutes or so, like less than 5 minutes. Like, Vanko cuts the car in half on the track. He then what else does he cuts the car in half. He swings his whips around. Tony takes a long ass time. I think Happy hits Vanko with a car.
Yeah,
and
a
then
few
Tony
times.
and then like gets the suit on. It's and that suit was cool. Like, I like the idea of that suit. I wish they had played more with it.
It took a very long time to get that suit on, because he even, ripped apart the Rolls Royce with Happy and Pepper in it before Pepper was able to get him the suit.
Yeah, it was just like and then that's it. Like, Iron Man just subdues him. He grabs the whips and sends like whatever energy back down and disables him and takes him down. And that's almost the halfway point in the movie. when that happened halfway through, like I think I was seeing it probably with my friend Sam in the theaters, and we just kind of like were like, what? Oh God, now what's gonna happen? Like that's it. That's a wrap on Vanko. Like there's got to be a third act, and then the third act, like he doesn't get to come back like in a giant whiplash suit. It's like you expect something that similar to what you saw at the end of Iron Man 1 with Obadiah. That's his name, as Ironmonger. Yeah, that's the second monger in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Is a Killmonger and an Ironmonger.
Yeah. What did you think of the fact that Tony told Vanko exactly how to fix his suit?
Oh, I thought it was great. I think that's, again, like some of the few things they got right was Tony's arrogance in this movie.
Yeah, it came back to bite him.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you pointed it out. It's like, we need to start, are there things that this movie did well? Because I think I've just been shitting on it for 45 minutes.
We've had some tangents. It hasn't been 45 minutes yet.
Not yet. But like, so what did it do right? I think the chemistry between Don Cheadle and Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic.
Yeah.
But I also believe like the chemistry between those two actors and a plank of wood would be fine too. Like those dudes are just so charismatic in general and such tremendous actors that like it's not surprising. But together, like they do sell the old friendship thing.
Right. I think underneath everything that is going on, they do some nice character work with Tony, even if it is with his arrogance and things like that. He sort of has to hit rock bottom and think he's actually going to die, but then he's given this little bit of hope by getting his dad's blueprint and everything, and that sort of just gives him the boost he needs to sort of get back to doing what he's best at. And even though what he tells Vanko comes back to bite him, it's something that he can obviously learn from. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe we don't tell the bad guys how to fix their tech.
Yeah, it was just, it's kind of like what you see in Iron Man 3 with him giving out his home address after Happy ends up in the hospital, where he's just like, that's the thing about Iron Man 2 and 3, not to go back down on the negative path again, but like, I was mentioning this to you before we started recording, but like, the reason I watched these movies again, I was watching all of the Tony Stark films. I wanted to see the arc of Tony Stark over the course of the MCU. So I watched it from Iron Man 1 through, I think I didn't end up watching Infinity War again. I'm saving that for whenever it drops on streaming.
Okay.
But yeah, so I've just been kind of watching his character grow, and I think they just stopped caring about like a dynamic or like character development, in terms of like he just became Tony Stark. And like, I guess Iron Man 3, like he didn't learn anything from the Vanko thing, because in Iron Man 3 he just gives out his home address, and sure enough there is a missile attack on his home, which probably would have happened regardless of whether he gave out his home address or not, or like dared the Mandarin to come after him. But
I'm sure on satellites you can tell which house is Tony Stark's.
Or you can just like Google. I can Google like Barbara Streisand's house, because she tried to hide it. It's just like it's just like it's the thing. It doesn't matter. Anybody can find out these things. You look at like tax records or whatever, or
right, property records, things like that.
It's like public domain. But yeah, I what else did the movie get right? The scene at the end where Don Cheadle's like creepily watching Pepper and Tony make out or whatever. That's great.
Yeah, it does have a few redeeming things, but for the most part, it was one of those things where you're just like, okay, they wanted to milk this character because the first movie was so good, but they also wanted to do just enough to get you to the next movie.
Yeah. I think they really just focusing on like, okay, so if you had to say one thing that Tony Stark like how he changed over the course of this movie, could you nail it down? I'm trying to think. Like,
I mean, he realized his dad actually cared about him.
Right. I think that's probably it. And I think also that's probably why the alcoholism thing had to take a back seat, or like a non-seat at all, like get kicked out of the car essentially, because because like you can't solve alcoholism with a father's love, unfortunately. Like alcoholism is a disease, and like you have to, it's a social problem, it's a physical problem, and requires a lot more than like realizing your dad cares about you. It's part of it for sure. Don't want to discount it, but
and he's an actor who definitely knows that too. So Downey I think Jr., because of everything he went through in his personal life leading up to Iron Man, pretty much, I think that's really when he got his life together.
Right.
I don't think him going through the alcoholism for the role would have worked if they didn't go into it all the way like they could have if,
Right.
These weren't all PG-13 movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably why the sickness had to be brought into him. So like you could say he changed in terms of becoming well.
Right.
Like becoming a more stable Iron Man. But it just ended up being kind of like a weird MacGuffin to throw into a film that already has so many other conflicts going on in it. Like the idea of like the drone thing, that was interesting because I feel like that was kind of when the whole it was when Obama was in office, and the drone thing was very present back then, as far as like, we're leaving like not automated, but like we're doing all of our warfare remotely. And so, has Hammer coming up with that, and Vanko showing like the dangers of, not AI, which we, again, not learning our lesson because of Ultron.
Yeah, clearly.
But yeah. So it was just it was a weird movie,
to say the least.
yeah. I mean, like it was entertaining, but you end up just walking away not really feeling full from it. You're just kind of like a couple laughs here and there. Oh man, was this the one with Gary Shandling saying "fuck you,
Yes.
Mr. Stark"? Yes, that was great, man.
That was
Rest
at the
in peace,
Senate
Gary
hearing.
Shandling. That was so good.
And then later they have him giving him and War Machine their medals, which was even better.
Oh yeah, see, like he calls him a little prick. He's like, something. See how bad a little prick can be sometimes, or whatever.
Yeah,
like that line. Just such a great like cameo, And then he gets his in. He reveals he's in Hydra in Winter Soldier, right? Gary Shandling's character, or is that Iron Man 3? He whispers "Hail Hydra" in somebody's ear.
Yeah. I don't remember which movie it was. Sometimes they all end up blending together.
Which I guess is their goal, as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They want these films to blend together. But I think maybe that's changing. They're course correcting that aspect because of the weird, like the time periods that these movies are taking place in. Black Panther taking place in mostly in Africa, and like in a fantastic Wakandan setting. Contrasting it with the villages of Africa or whatever like that, and then also it was in the cities, like the urban communities also, which is nice. And then for what's her name, Captain Marvel, the Carol Danvers movie's coming out. That's gonna be like a 90s film, I think.
Yeah,
right.
I'm pretty excited about that one.
It's kind of the same idea as X-Men that they're kind of trudging down on this one. It's like like we have these characters that have existed for so many years in all these different decades and aesthetics, and well, let's see what the X-Men would look like in the 90s or the 70s or whatever. So it's a nice, there's a lot of source material to draw from and a lot of visual material to draw from in terms of this. It's gonna be interesting. I feel like the soundtrack for Captain Marvel will be interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll throw some like TLC or something in there, or just some good 90s music. That'd be good.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how well they age down Coulson and Fury too, because
right, yeah,
they're definitely actors who are getting older. It's not like they look horrible by any means, but to make them look like they did in the 90s, that'll be interesting. And they've done a really good job with that before, even with Tony. So
yeah, that was ridiculous, that scene.
Yeah.
It was so sweet.
I bet that is very expensive, though.
Oh my god, I can't imagine just changing the way he looks. I mean, it's almost like Tarkin in Star Wars in Rogue One when they brought him back. But now they're taking a real person, they're de-aging them, so they're probably shooting the same scene. I mean, Nick Fury looked pretty good in the trailers. I guess he'll be fine.
Yeah, I think so too. But there is a lot to look forward to next year for Marvel. That's for sure. And right now, I'm just really excited about the animated Spider-Man movie coming out on my birthday. So
yes, I saw Harry Potter with Aaron a couple days ago, and they were doing a trailer for that, and I hadn't seen the trailers yet. I've been kind of I wanted to steer clear of it because it is a movie I'm going to see, and it's like any other situation where I know I'm going to see this movie in theaters, so I don't want to spoil too much with the trailers. But I definitely I think that's John Mulaney as Spider-Ham, I think.
Yeah, John Mulaney. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's great. I wish I hadn't seen the trailer for that reason, because I wanted to be spoiled by Spider-Man. I
really love the different textures that they're using in the animation for that too. It's
so
crazy.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we will not spoil anything any further because I probably know quite a bit about it that you don't want to know just
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, no. I mean, I know Nick Cage is in it. That's all. That's all I got.
Yeah.
But I wish they had kept the Spider-Gwen secret as well, because that would have thrown me for sure.
Yeah, I think they're going to go all in on the animated universe too for Sony, and I don't mind.
They got it. They don't have a lot of chips left, so they're
Yeah.
going all in. They have to. They're just like okay, well, Marvel is doing really well. Venom did fine, so I guess they're back in like the running for maybe they'll try and take back Spider-Man or whatever. Man, if they try and take control of Tom Holland again, that would suck.
Yeah, I really like what they're doing with him in the MCU.
Yeah, they I don't want to.
They're
see
having
Tom
fun with him, which I think is a really good idea. So
yeah, it's a big contrast from what they've done before, which is just torture the poor child.
yeah,
I mean, they disappeared him, I guess. So we'll see what they're doing with him next movie.
he didn't feel so good.
Hey, don't, Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good.
Yeah.
But what a great meme! What a great meme
Yeah,
it
true.
generated. Seriously.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on to talk about or complain about Iron Man 2, whichever way you want to look at it. But we will definitely do Iron Man 3 sometime soon. I have more time freeing up in December. So
Awesome. I'm happy to return for that. It'll be great.
yes. And to the listeners, as always, thank you all for listening. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.